should be live. I'm gonna check the sound. Oop, it's gonna get really loud. Hello everybody. If you're joining us, go ahead and like the video. Let's see here. All right, yep, sounds good. All right.
How's everybody doing this fine Sunday afternoon? We are on a roll getting stuff done here. It's like spring in February.
Yeah.
So spring's come early, I guess. Our pastures are starting to grow. Our grass around the farm is starting to green up. Little shoots, little blades of grass are popping out everywhere. Hopefully they're surviving fine overnight, but it is going great here. We're going to be able to put our animals out on pasture sooner than I thought, so I guess those extra 6 bales of hay that I bought are probably not going to need to get used. At least not all 6 of them, but we've got the hay now, so that's good. So spring has come early for us, and we are just trucking away here as we get ready to jump into it full steam ahead. We have a lot of things on the docket to talk about, and we are going to be talking about, there we go, I've got my itinerary pulled up here so that we can share this with everybody. So let's just go through the list of what we're going to be talking about right off the bat. We are going to be discussing, besides spring coming early, which we kind of already talked about, and that's all I want to cover there. We've got turkey and quail egg incubation coming up. We have our bull that we processed.
How does that look? A little bit better?
It
Seemed really high.
Yeah, maybe. Could probably come down more.
Okay.
But we have our bull that we slaughtered. He is 1/4 processed, so we'll talk about what we've gotten from him so far. Just a rough idea of what we've gotten. We have this thing in my arm still there, but getting better. Talk about that shortly. We'll be talking about reseeding our pastures, installing new paddocks in the pastures, new stuff in our lives with the kids, and then the struggle to eat enough on carnivore. And I heard something about we need to talk about fat. But then we're going to talk about some plans with our poultry as well. So all that to come. I guess we can jump right into it and at some point talk about Gideon's new favorite accessory. But probably don't want to take it away from him this instant either.
Which one? The blanket?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So let's talk about the turkey and the quail egg incubation. We have this will be our 3rd or 4th season. Let's see, 2001, 2002, 2003. So we're starting our 4th season here, incubating quail eggs. Mm-hmm. So that's nothing new, except we haven't done it all winter because it's just been too much of a hassle and a struggle. And the garage was not going to be available for the birds this year. So the new thing though this year is the turkey eggs. We have almost a full tray of turkey eggs, and we're going to have to start incubating with less than a full tray because some of those eggs are already probably too old to incubate. But we are gonna, and I see we've got a double yolker over there too. It's got to be a double yolker.
It's massive.
Almost twice the size of the other turkey eggs.
This is the turkey egg. Look how pretty that is. It's all
They're-
spotted.
They're very pretty eggs. I really like them.
Yeah.
So we're going to be trying to incubate our own turkey eggs this year. You know, what, a couple of years ago? Yeah, it would have been 2 years ago. I did a little video about how we process our own turkey for Thanksgiving farm style. And what happened was that video basically went viral. I don't think it's at 1 million views yet, but it's got
It's pretty darn
a
close.
lot of views. Yeah, you should look it up.
I'll
See
look
what
it
this stupid farm
It was a
style
Thanksgiving.
turkey, Thanksgiving video.
Yeah.
Just a short, but it has gotten so many views. I
Very
think
controversial too.
it has gotten probably way more views, many times more views than all the other videos on our channel combined, shorts and long form videos. So it's just crazy how, I put it out thinking it's not going to be that great.
It didn't do all that great until like a while later. So it's
Over
shy of
3/4,
800.
yeah, almost 800,000 views. So that's been kind of fun to watch that go. But my point to bringing it up is there's so many people that were angry that we had butchered a turkey, and it's like, have you never eaten turkey before? Have you never had turkey sandwich meat? Have you never had a turkey sandwich? Have you had, ground turkey, turkey bacon? There's a whole bunch of different turkey products out there, and here's the thing, like, it all comes from somewhere. They're not like pulling it out of thin air. So what we were doing was actually more cost effective, more ecologically responsible, and not to say that we're better than everybody by any means, but I'm just saying, like, this should have been a great thing, and yet there's people that are upset because it could have had a great life, they said.
Yeah.
You could have
You ruined
gotten
its
you
life.
could have taken its eggs and you could have incubated them.
Wasn't it a male though?
No, it was a female.
Oh, was it a female?
Yep.
Okay.
When you raise out turkeys, you take the males and the females, and they all get processed, and you don't know the difference when it's on your plate. It all tastes the same. Nothing special is done to the males. I suppose you could make them a Capone turkey, which is basically removing their male organs surgically, and I guess it's supposed to make them grow real fat and plump. And so maybe they actually do that with male turkeys. I don't know, but that's beside the point. The point is, people are upset because we didn't hold on to this turkey. It could have given us baby turkeys. Well, first of all, these people don't have a clue how nature works, because we didn't have a male turkey to breed with the female turkey, so it wasn't going to have no babies. It would lay eggs, but those eggs wouldn't be fertile, and they wouldn't hatch. She could have sat on them for 2 years, and nothing's gonna happen to these eggs. So we decided a long time ago that when we got here to the farm, it was going to be our goal to try to breed our own animals. So that's what we've done. We've kept turkeys from last year. We raised out 6 turkeys. Well, 7, but 1 died early on, as turkeys want to do. After they're about a month or 2 old, nothing can kill them. But before that, it seems like you look at them wrong and they'll fall over dead. So we've kept 4 of these turkeys. 3 hens and a tom. And so Chad and his ladies out there are being very productive, and we've gotten a whole bunch of eggs there, and we're going to try incubating them and see how it works. Now, they're a longer incubating egg, so it's 28 days. So you got 4 weeks that they got to sit there in the incubator. So that can be a little tricky. With longer incubating eggs, you generally have a lower hatch rate. But we're going to give it a try, because people were mad at us, and if we're at least not people that want to make other people mad. So for all of the quote unquote haters out there, we kept 4 hens and a tom, and they're supplying us more than enough eggs for all of our needs. We're probably going to incubate some of these and sell them, because and the breed of these turkeys is is it the Heritage Gold or Artisan Gold, which is basically marketing fluff for black turkey. It's a smaller heritage breed black turkey. Might be from France, I can't remember, but they rebranded it as a Artisan Gold turkey. So we're going to be taking care of these eggs later today and getting those in the incubator.
The question about how old, or how can you tell if they're too old? What is it? Is it 2 weeks generally? Like usually fertilization, like no, it's 7 days. So like the fertilization of an egg goes down every single day since it's been hatched, but you can generally go anywhere between 7 to 2 weeks of hanging onto an egg as long as they're done right in the right temperatures. But there's another way to know too.
Well, if the egg is still viable, if it's still good, it's going to sink to the bottom in a sink of water. So we fill the sink up with water, enough water to submerge the egg in, place the egg in the water. If it goes to the bottom, it's more than likely viable. If it's floating, it's a bad egg. We're gonna throw it out. So that's the fastest, easiest way for me when I go to incubate eggs. I just throw them all in a sink of water, and the ones that float to the top, I pull out, throw away. The ones that are kind of hanging there, half, what do you call it? They're not submerged completely, or they are submerged completely, but they're not sinking. So they're kind of just
tip up.
Yeah, well, they're floating in the water almost. Those we wait about 10 minutes to see if they'll sink to the bottom. They may have to absorb some more water because they become dehydrated. But that's basically how I check eggs, to see if they're good, to see if they're going to be worth even putting in the incubator. Then, after about 7 to 10 days, we'll candle the eggs. We'll take a really bright light, and you just take your flashlight, you set the egg right on top of it there, and you can look inside and you'll see blood vessels, potentially blood vessels inside it if it's growing. And then if you ever see those blood vessels turn all black or something, that means it's died, and you take the eggs out. So you get rid of the eggs that are not developing or that have died, and that just helps prevent any sort of infection spreading or anything like that. So
or
bacteria or explosions, because an egg that sits in there for the full 28 days potentially could explode. And I don't know that we've ever had one explode. Maybe one, but
quail eggs.
We have never had we've never had a huge mess. We've just had some that crack and they start to leak and stuff.
And it stinks.
An egg that's sat in there for 28 days and isn't viable, they're gonna stink. So we usually throw those way off on the edge of the property where we're not gonna have to smell them.
It doesn't explode like an explosion, but they crack, which then make them ooze some of the egg liquid out, and then it stinks. Took us a while to figure it out last year. Like we'd walk past and be like, why does it just kind of smells off right around here? And so then I realized, oh, the incubator's there. Maybe we have an egg that but it hadn't happened to us other 2 years. It happened when we got fertilized eggs mailed to us, and so we didn't know what it was at first until we were like, oh, let's pull it out and look, and found some that had cracked. So we say explode, kind of. It's an over-exaggeration.
You're right, Julia. Suspended in the water. That's the word I was looking for. So, we just got done with a...
Yeah, sorry. That was a bit of an over-exaggeration. They don't explode and splatter the egg stuff everywhere. No.
On Valentine's Day, I dispatched, skinned, and eviscerated our bull that we had been planning on using for beef, and I got all that done. I actually went over and helped a friend earlier in the day, and then that put me back here around 2, and then I spent till about midnight working on this bull. So we got him hung, and so quartered and hung and everything, and so it was great. But I woke up the next day, I was sore all over, thought, well, that's normal. Went to bed. So this is now the third day after butchering him. I wake up and I'm feeling great, except for my arm here. So my arm here on the back side of the arm, I had this awful pain and it was swollen. It's gotten a lot better, but that I believe is tendonitis. And so I have been just trying to rest that as much as possible, which is really frustrating for me because I'm a fairly active person and I've been wanting to get out and do stuff, and I've been having to have the kids come along and help me out with chores, and that's been really frustrating. Super frustrating because I just want to be able to do everything. And so kind of being handicapped has been teaching me to be a little more patient. But it is getting better. I woke up this morning. This is now what?
Week?
It's over a week.
Over a week.
Yeah, it's like
Because you were wearing the sling last
10 days later, I'm starting to finally feel a little better. Starting to finally feel almost normal. So I was doing a little bit more today. I can kind of feel it starting to ache, but I don't think I've overdone it. It's just going to take rest and time. I am feeling a lot more encouraged by the progress that it's made, the healing. That's something that even yesterday I was starting to get really depressed about it, just thinking this is taking forever to heal. Why is it still?
Because there's things that have to get done.
Yeah.
It's spring. It's not, but it feels like spring. So if we feel like we need to start doing things that we would do in spring, but because of his tendons being all messed up, it's really hard.
Yeah.
To not overdo it and stuff like that.
I've been needing to help a buddy work on his house too, and so yesterday I said, "Put your hand right here," and I manipulated my hand like this, and I can't feel it right now. So that tells me it's gotten that much better. Oh, I could kind of feel it there, but it's just barely. Okay, it felt like a little popping in there, like a little vibration, like that. And it was just, he's like, "Whoa, that's weird." I'm like, yeah, so that's what's going on with my arm, but it is getting better. However, a couple of days ago, we had to take the quarters down. The garage wasn't staying cold enough and we needed to get them moved into our cooler. The reason we didn't put them in the cooler in the first place is the cooler just wasn't clean. It also wasn't set up. So the other day my brother came over, he helped me get the cooler all set up. We built some shelves for it, and hog panel. Hog paneling is great stuff when you've got heaps of it laying around the property that's good, clean stuff. So we actually cut some segments of hog paneling, bent the ends over, and then stuck them in these brackets on either side of each wall of the cooler. And then we just lay our beef in there. And then we hung one in the middle. So in the middle, we've got a space for hanging an entire quarter of beef. And then on the sides, we've got a shelf to actually set a quarter of beef on there. So we got that done. And then we took the third quarter, the last quarter, and we actually went through and processed it down to the bone. And out of that, we got roughly 100 pounds. I think that I'm way under on that because each of those meat lugs, there's 3 of them, feel like we've got 45, 50 pounds. It's heavy. It feels like a block of concrete. But I'm just going to go conservative here and say 100 pounds of ground beef, 20 pounds of steak and ribs, and that's probably a little low, and then 20 pounds of brisket. And that's just from a single 4-quarter of this animal. So we have a ton of beef.
In which quarter was it? Was it the front side?
Yep, the front quarter. One of the front quarters. So we've got another front quarter, so that's going to be another at least 140 pounds of meat. And then we've got the rear quarters, which they're going to be a little on the lighter side, maybe 90 to 100 pounds of meat from the rear quarters. I don't know.
Are you including the bone weight when you're talking about?
No, not
okay.
including the bone weight. Because
I was going to say, after you took them off, how much do we have in total with bones?
So altogether, what we hung in the garage, and this is before water weight because it's going to evaporate, but you take the weight of it before you have any of that water evaporate off. We had 690 pounds of carcass hanging in the garage. So I'd say somewhere around a 200-pound quarter is what we processed, and we got roughly 150 pounds of meat out of it. So not including the bone. The bones, what we're going to do is saw those up, make them into soup bones, and then put them in this gigantic pot that I've got. I mean, it's really like, it's this big.
It's like 40, 30 quart, no, 60 quarts, isn't it?
It's more than that. I think
more than
I think
that?
it's an 80 quart,
Oh,
but it's massive, and
Yeah.
we're going to put all the bones in there, and then just simmer them for probably 48 hours to create a gigantic thing of bone broth, and then work as fast as we can to freeze that. We'll
yeah.
we'll have to put it in the cooler to cool it off, and then ladle it out into our, what do we have, like 4 or 5 of those little
Yeah, 5 trays.
uh,
Oh, or the super cubes.
the super cubes, yeah, the soup cubes.
Yeah,
super cubes.
Super. I think they're super.
We'll probably freeze dry some of it, freeze some of it, and then I don't know what we'll do with it all, but
We could can some too if we want to.
yep,
It's a little easier at getting it, but like freeze drying, it stores better.
Yeah.
So I'd probably prefer freeze drying over canning, just because you don't then have
yeah.
all these jars.
Now's the point where I wish we had gotten the really big freeze dryer, the extra large one. We just got the medium one, but
Julie has a question for you though. So how hard was it emotionally to butcher Doom?
It was not, it's not the most fun thing, but it's something that I just have, I kind of put my emotions aside and I say, this is for our survival. We need to eat. And so I grew up doing this, and so having that period of time between butchering animals and then not butchering them and then starting up again, having that time in between kind of, I wasn't sure what to expect, but since we came to the farm, it's never been like the most fun thing, even chickens. Like by the end of the day, I'm just ready to be done with death. It's a lot of death, but it gives us a really good idea of the cost of maintaining, of continuing our own lives. But to get down to the actual point here, it was not that hard. I mean, it was, and I've processed steer before. I've processed steer that I liked more than him. So butchering a bull, it is definitely a little different than a chicken. It's a little different than a pig, but I think I've gotten to the point where it's, I wouldn't say it's routine, but it's easier. So that's the one thing, and I've heard old school, old timer farmers, ranchers, talk about it. They probably wouldn't tell just any random person, but it is, it's kind of a weighty thing. But you just kind of accept that that's what is required, some sort of sacrifice to extend and provide sustenance for your own life. Does that answer the question? I don't know.
Something that I would say too, like when it comes to concerning me and how I feel about the butchering of the animals that we raise, I tend to stay fairly neutral emotionally with the animals because I understand they are serving a purpose, and so I don't get attached to them. Unless they are our breeders. I tend to get slightly attached to the breeders with the understanding that at any point we could butcher them. Especially if like something happens that in order to end their suffering, we then have to just we have to butcher them. And so, but I would say like the longer we have them, the slightly more attached I tend to get. So, let's see here. With the pigs, I would say like our feeder pigs that we took care of last year, was it 2 years ago? Whenever we did them, I was slightly attached to Chester. And so, and I wasn't like hugely attached, but it was more like, you know, I was kind of sad, you know, it was a sad day when Chester, when we butchered him, but also I had gone in there knowing he's food. So like I didn't get too attached, but he was around long enough and he had gained enough of a personality for me to call him Chester in the first place. We tend to not name the animals we're going to butcher, unless they're going to be around for a long time and we need to be able to tell them apart. Then we name them. So, like our lambs, we tend to name the lambs because we need to tell them apart, even though we're fully intending to eat them. So,
Yep. So, looks like we got some milk to take care of here, but
I'll take care of it. You can keep talking.
one of the things that makes it easier for me is I know that I am the most qualified, the most educated, and I'm not saying this to say like, you know, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying this is just a fact. I am the best qualified person to dispatch that animal humanely and kindly and compassionately so that they have no pain or the least amount of pain possible. And I know that even, okay, and it's not that I've never made a mistake and something hasn't kind of gotten screwed up. And then I have to jump in there and make a, you know, correct my mistakes. Sometimes when, you know, you're shooting a big animal, I'm not supposed to say that, am I? When you're dispatching a large animal, you don't hit them where you want to hit them. And that's happened before, and it's a really terrible feeling. However, I'd rather feel that knowing that I can own that mistake rather than getting mad at somebody else. So I've had friends over that have helped with processing and stuff. I've never handed one of them the sleepy time dispenser. I've never handed one of them anything that's going to be putting that animal to an end, because that's my responsibility. I got to own that, whether it goes well, and in most cases it does, or whether something happens and you inadvertently make a mistake and hit the wrong spot, then, you know, I got to own that. And so I'm not going to put that on anybody else, and I'm not going to, anyway, I think I've made my point. That's why I do it, even though I don't want to, even though I don't love it. It's just one of those things that's got to be done. And so I kind of, you know, they say men are more emotionally able to kind of shut things off, and so that's not something that I've really struggled with, to be honest. Overall, it's not that I don't feel anything, but it's something that I do know as you're approaching that animal. I always do it with the intent of, I want to do the very best I can. I want to do right by this animal. It's going down one way or the other. I'd rather have the peace of mind knowing that I did my very best, even if my very best isn't always the same every time. But ultimately, the goal is accomplished. As humane, as clean an ending for that animal as quickly as possible every single time. And so that's where I kind of step in and I go, I'm not going to hand this off to anybody. I'm going to make sure that it's done right, or as best as I can possibly do. Now, if there were somebody that does this all the time, you know, they're professional and they do it all the time. However, I actually went one time, and I'm not going to name any names, and I'm not saying this if they were to ever see this, you're probably going to recognize yourself here, but I did go to a butcher, an on-farm butcher, with somebody who actually does this professionally at a butcher shop, not too far from where we are. And it was butchered. I mean, it was bad. And I was just the guest, so, you know, but at one time I wanted to take that, what do they call them, freedom dispenser, and I wanted to, say like, I'll do the job. Or I had my own at the time on me, and so I wanted to take it out and be like, let me just put it out of its misery, because it was not fun. But everything turned out okay. They finally were able to get the animal down, and then everything else went fine. But it was just that one time. It's like, wow. So this guy does it all the time and still just royally butchered it like that, literally, or metaphorically. But anyway, not to say anything bad about him, but it's just to show that like anybody can make a mistake, even a professional, even somebody who does it every day. That was his profession, and he couldn't understand why he was having such trouble with his freedom seed dispenser, but it finally got resolved. It was just kind of a traumatic thing to have to witness. So I'm really glad that it was just me there. And moving on to bigger and better things. Julia says, I made the mistake of letting my grandfather take out one of my roosters who was a pet. I think he misunderstood and thought it was aggressive, and it wasn't pretty how he handled it. Yikes. Yep. Oh, I don't know if I'll read that on the live stream, but it's there in the comments right after the comment I read. So that's nasty. Oof. Yeah, we had a rooster that one of the dogs decided to go after and make their stuffed animal. The rooster lived for another year afterwards, but he had half a beak. It was pretty sad. He seemed to be fine, but he did eventually die. He's just succumbed to probably, he could always get enough food. He seemed like he had his good weight, and then one day we walked out there and he wasn't doing so good, and a couple days later he was dead.
Yeah, I think it might have been our other rooster. Like, he had been the only rooster at the time, and then by the time he stopped being around was after our other roosters had grown up and were probably beating up on him, just because he didn't have that extra weapon like they do. But I did hear that my dad told me that in chicken CAFOs, that's what they do, is they remove the beaks, or at least the top beak of chickens, so that they can't kill each other. So I thought that was interesting. So they can live without a top beak or a full beak.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, so it wasn't him who broke the beak. It was the rooster broke his own beak.
Ah.
Wow. Yep. Well, that was definitely the right call then. But yeah, there's just things that.
Oh, that's how her grandfather handled it. Nice emoji.
So we are. I was planning on this year reseeding our pastures. We have our 5 breeder pigs out in our north pasture, just rooting and tearing everything up, and that's actually good because we had a bunch of thistles out there.
Yes, we did.
So my hope is they've gone through there and they've rooted out all of the thistle roots.
And the wild parsnip. That'd be nice if they took care of the wild parsnip.
So they have been out there with the cooler or warmer weather. They've been able to root and dig up and just plow up the pasture. They haven't plowed up the really grassy portions, which that's interesting.
It's all the weedy stuff.
It's all around where the weeds were. They've gone after that.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have helped us out with our weeds. This is regenerative grazing. This is regenerative farming, though. You're using the animals in symbiosis with the land, letting the animals, the pigness of the pig come out and actually do its job, because they are a rooting animal. And even though these are Idaho pasture pigs, and some people want to claim that they don't root, well, they do root. All pigs root. All your grazing pigs are going to root some. And so what I've found is you let them do it when and where it's going to benefit the land. And so in this case, they're taking care of a whole bunch of weeds for us. There's probably still going to be weeds out there this year, a lot of thistles because there's thistle seeds. But what's going to ultimately happen is we're going to more intensively graze that this year. We have less sheep, but more cows.
Yeah.
Both of each still. So we're going to be rotationally, regeneratively grazing out there. But our pigs, the awesome thing about letting the pigness of the pig come out and do its job is in this in this lull, in this off season now, they've gone out there and they have rooted up and dug up all of the tubers, all of the roots, looking for seeds, I'm sure too, and they've just turned it all over. Wherever there were thistles out there, I'll be really interested to see if they come back at least the way that they were last year.
What's interesting too is the spot that they've tilled, like they've completely tilled it up, but they have done a shallow till. It's not like nothing compared to like a tilling machine. It's very shallow tilling, but it is also a very compacted spot. It was hard earth there that they've now softened and moved the earth. So I find that interesting. I don't know if it's just because that's the more high traffic area, but I do know that the ground was very compacted right there too. And now it's not because
Yes.
they've gone in and they've shoveled and moved the dirt around.
Yep. So they've done a good job loosening up the soil for us. And what we're going to do is get the same seed mix that we got 3 years ago. And we're going to go out there and broadcast it by hand and probably cover it with straw because I've got a couple tons of straw in the barn. We should still have plenty of that left when we come around to seeding, but I'm excited to get this. I think the mix is called, is it Laugh and Grow Fat?
I don't know.
I think it's called Laugh and Grow Fat. And it's basically alfalfa, clover, and then five kinds of grass. So you've got orchard grass,
Timothy. Is there a blue? Something it's called something blue.
Maybe, but it's not like the lawn grass, like
Oh, okay, maybe I'm messing it up then.
Kentucky bluegrass. I don't think it's Kentucky bluegrass, but yeah, so a bunch of different types of grass, and that's worked really well for our sheep. It's worked really well for our steers that we had out there a couple years ago, and so we're going to do that again. We're going to go out there, broadcast our seed, hopefully get a good stand with all of that tilling that the pigs did. When we first planted our pastures, when we first had them planted or seeded, what we did was we had somebody come in with a seed drill, and without doing any tilling or turning over of the pasture soil, they just went in and direct drilled into the soil as it was. And so we got a really good stand that way. But now that it's all tilled up, we'll go out to those tilled up places, go out and broadcast by hand all this seed, and I expect we'll probably get a good stand. We might have to water it.
Yeah. We had a drought that year too. We had to go out there and water the pasture too. Otherwise, it was so dry, nothing was going to grow.
But before we do that, I actually need to work on installing new paddocks out there. We need to, so we have manually went out and set up fence for several years now, and I'm done with that. I'm done going out there and, at least in the north pasture, we're going to go out and set up paddocks so that we can rotationally graze our sheep and our cows. So we'll rotate around the pasture our flurd, that's a flock and a herd together, and keep them moving so that they're not overgrazing an area. And then when they leave that area, they're going to move to another paddock, and we'll just keep moving them all the way around the pasture, down to the south pasture, and then back up to the north pasture on that spot that they haven't touched for maybe a month. That'll give time for two things to happen. First of all, the roots, and they're not going to graze down to the roots. We're going to leave about 4+ inches of blade of grass there. And people tell me that I'm doing this wrong all the time, and they don't know what they're talking about because they don't know what I'm talking about. And they're not wrong, but we use a different system. And so in our system, we know works because people have been doing it for generations, and there's just people out there that don't know anything about this. So um, what's going to happen is with that 4-inch blade of grass, it's going to have just enough of a blade to collect the solar power, to feed the root, to grow new shoots, to grow taller. That blade of grass is going to recover too, and it'll actually grow a point again. And then you're going to have fresh, beautiful, nutritious grass, which has been fed by the manure that the animals dropped on the land before they left that paddock. So it's going to be a really great, amazing cycle to put the paddock through. We're going to grow way more grass than the average pasture grows, and it's going to be healthier, it's going to be more nutritious. So truly, laugh and grow fat on this laugh and grow fat mix. They're going to also leave that paddock, leave their waste behind, and it takes a couple of days for the eggs to hatch and for the larvae of parasites, which would be in their manure, to then climb up the little stalks of grass and for the animals to ingest them again. And then it's going to be about 30 days before they come back to that paddock, ideally. And that's going to be just enough time that these parasites would have died off. So we're not going to have to worm our animals. Our animals are going to be getting more nutritious food. Our paddocks are going to be growing better and be providing more nutrition, and themselves being better better fertilized and having that rest period. Everything working in tandem. When we do this right, and we've never been able to do it great in the North Pasture just because it takes so much time. You don't have permanent paddocks out there. You got to set up the paddock each day. It takes some time, and you eventually, you hit a day or a week where you can't get out there as much, and so you slack off, and then you go, it's all ruined. So just open the entire pasture up to them. But when it's working well, at its best, we are pumping out grass like nothing else. We are, the stuff just grows back like crazy. Mm-hmm. And by the time they get back on a paddock, it's amazing how much, it's amazing. You can't even tell that animals had been on it a month ago. So down the road here, we've got some grazing land, and that is always like 2 inches tall, it seems like. Now it does grow up a little bit more in the spring, but then they graze it right down, and it stays an inch or two tall for
the whole summer.
The entire summer. And so how is that good for the plant? Because it never has a chance to really fully recover, and you're basically you're depleting the nutrients, or you're depleting the energy store that root. The root can only store so much, and what ends up happening is eventually that root it just gives up, and it says, fine, not going to grow as much.
Yeah, the only thing I saw growing in there taller than the grass was thistles.
The thistles. So they need to get some pigs in there.
Yeah.
And let the pigness of the pig come out and go and till up those thistles over the winter. Yeah. And get those out of there so they don't have to go and spray glyphosate or whatever on them.
So Julie's asking about heartworms or heartworm.
What about heartworms? It's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. All I know is that the cattlemen that I have learned from, they never said anything about heartworm. That's a good question. Makes me wonder, do they have to worm for heartworm? But as far as the regular intestinal worms, that's what we're getting rid of. So, we don't have to use ivermectin and other things on We don't have to use any dewormers that we're not supposed to mention because, you know,
YouTube.
of censorship. You can't even mention it in regards to your animals. Hopefully nothing happens. We're probably small enough that nothing's gonna happen. So dumb, these rules. Okay. So yeah, we don't have to use any dewormers, and it's been great. 3 years now, no problems. Yeah. And I don't know about heartworm. Does it work for heartworm? I suppose it might. It's a
I've never heard of anyone vaccinating for heartworm in
not
livestock.
vaccinating, but
Or
medicating.
Medicating,
deworming.
yeah. Because I know that you do it for your dogs in the summertime when the mosquitoes are up, because that's where the heartworm comes from, is mosquitoes. But I've never heard of anyone local doing it for livestock or anyone that we watch or anything like that. So that's a new one we'd have to look into.
Yeah, but you know, there were things that I thought I knew everything, and then I went to that grazing school, and then
Yes.
I learned all sorts of things that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Learned that I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
But that's just the way things go. When you learn anything new, you know, 10 years in, you might still be learning. Hopefully you
Yeah.
are. Hopefully you don't. That would be real boring if life were that. If life went that fast that 10 years into something, there's nothing left to learn. Anyway, so we're going to be installing new paddocks in the pastures. Then we'll be reseeding them to kind of help those areas out there recover. And I'm sure that some of that out there will just grow back because they haven't torn up everything. What am I trying to say here? Surely they have not eaten through every root system out there.
Yeah.
In these large swaths where they've gone in where the thistles were. Hopefully they've mostly gotten after the thistles. But just to be safe, I want to get some more seed on there. It's going to be, you know, probably $50 to reseed our entire pasture, and probably not even that.
I was gonna say, I don't know about that.
We've probably got about acre and a half out there to reseed. They've probably torn up about half of it, but we had about half of it covered in thistles.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that those have been taken care of, because I don't want the weed commissioner sending me another letter telling me to go out and mow my pasture. He's gonna come out and do it himself, because that kind of stuff just makes me mad when you know, somebody in some outdated position, because everybody around here sprays for weeds. Everybody around us sprays for weeds. We're the only ones that don't. So why are they concerned about our weeds? If they're spraying for weeds, they're taken care of. They're good.
Oh, but guess what? Which weed is not on the list that you have to take care of if it's in your yard or your ditch? Wild parsnip.
Yep.
Which I find to be more harmful than thistle.
Oh, thistle's gonna tickle you. Wild parsnip's gonna burn you.
Yeah.
Nasty stuff.
But you don't have to control your wild parsnip, but you got to control your thistle.
Yeah, it's not. They took it off the noxious weed list a few years ago, which I smell corruption there. Like,
Yeah.
why'd you do that? Like, this stuff is overtaking. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that tangent. Or that'll be all I talk about for the rest of the life. So, yeah, we are going to transition very ungracefully into our into real life. So, you went to the store the other day.
I did.
You went to what, Joann's?
I went to Joann Fabrics.
And you had Gideon with you.
I had Gideon and the girls with me.
And you found this big ball of yarn. A big
did.
ball of fluffy yarn.
Mm-hmm. And his reaction was priceless. Actually, let's use your phone to show, because mine is busy. But did you save it?
Oh.
No,
I didn't.
so it's going to be in the messages. So I took a video of Gideon's reaction to the yarn because I thought it was cute and hilarious.
So I'm going to change this quick. I don't know if that's going to show up very well at all, but
All right,
not
so
terrible.
I think he wants the yarn. So that was his reaction to the ball of yarn, and so I took what he was saying seriously, and I bought the yarn, and I'll show you what I made with it.
It was the cutest thing.
So I made him a blanket using it, and I've put.
What was his reaction after you had finished the blanket and you handed it to him?
He did the same thing. He grabbed it and was just like, ah! But I made it with some larger holes so that he can grab it, stick his fingers through it, and just grab it, and then he can suck on it if that's what he wants to do. But anytime I've given it to him, he's always just he grabs it and just like holds it. He loves it, apparently. He really likes it. So I'm fine with that. I thought it was absolutely cute. I put a story on it on my Facebook, and it's just the cutest thing ever. I'd never seen him react to like yarn, and I've put yarn in his car seat before when I've been shopping for yarn. He just has never cared, but this one he apparently he liked the colors and he liked the way it felt. So I decided to oblige him and get it and make a blanket for him. So that is what I did this week. I'm also working on a sleeper for him, which is taking some time, but it's progressing nicely. I'm about maybe halfway done. So thank you, Chris. I like it. I think he does too. So, but yeah, that's what I've done so far this week. So, how about you? Upset anybody on the internet this week?
Well, Chris knows all about that. Chris, I saw you going to bat with somebody in the comments. I thought your answers were pretty good. I just decided I was going to leave it at that.
Oh yeah, that's right. You upset a vegan, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got nothing against vegans, but it's mostly them who have problems with me. And I kept trying to tell this person, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to, you already told me that I'm an animal abuser.
Murderer.
No, they said animal abuser.
Oh, okay.
Somebody else said
we've been called
something
many
else.
things.
So at the point where they said that, I was just like, I'm not going to have, there's not going to be a constructive conversation here. Not because I don't want to have one. I would. But, they were coming in very aggressively. They were coming in very heavy-handed. And I'm just going, yeah. They're obviously not here to talk. They're here to accuse and condemn. And I'm just not going to play that game. So I stepped out of the game. I did keep responding a little bit just because they kept responding. I would wake up in the morning and
You'd have a book?
Look at the notification and I'd see, yeah, I've got a new book to read here. So I did kind of lightly egg them on just to keep responding because it was my entertainment for a few days. Yeah.
Very close-minded.
Close-minded. I find often too, like if you leave the comment section open for others to respond, you'll find that other people are responding quite adequately and sometimes better than you could. So I just decided to leave it to you, Chris. But anyway, yeah, I've upset everybody on the internet. We're all gonna go to an early grave, or we're gonna need to see the cardiologist in a year. And I just keep telling people, if that's the case, why aren't there, there's probably 100,000 or more carnivores around the world. We should be seeing something by now. With that sort of numbers, you should be seeing more research out there, more evidence, and not old studies. Okay, not the Seven Nations study by Ansel Keys, not the Framingham study that is the kind of the center, the keystone seminal work for that cardiology, modern cardiology, is based on today. Those have both been proven to have been based on falsified data and fraudulent study methods to show that meat, or the saturated fat in meat specifically, is dangerous, and that the cholesterol there is dangerous for our health. And they were all done, sponsored by Coca-Cola and sugar companies, grain companies, to vindicate and to defend sugar, carbohydrates, because studies were coming out showing that these things caused clogged arteries, that they were causing heart disease, coronary heart disease, that they were causing all sorts of problems. And what they did ultimately to cover this up was hire a couple Harvard professors, have them do these studies, falsifying data to show that coronary heart disease is caused by saturated fat in meat. So once the studies came out, it was hotly debated. One of those Harvard professors actually became the head of the USDA. Shortly thereafter, the USDA came down and said, based on these studies, we decree meat is bad. You should eat, a small amount of servings every week. Definitely not every day, maybe, and definitely not for every meal. If you want to live long, if you want to avoid coronary heart disease, instead turn to grain, turn to carbohydrates, turn to starches. And so who benefits from this? Well, the same people who funded the studies. And the people that did the studies benefited greatly, were appointed to, one of them was appointed to the head of the USDA. So there were just people scratching each other's backs there between academia and between the USDA and the big corporate interests. And it has led to a lot of problems. When studies should have come out showing the correlation, the connection between sugar and heart disease, they came out showing the connection between saturated fats in meat, and heart disease. And even still to this day, people are pointing out that polyunsaturated fats are better for you than saturated fats, which is not the case, unfortunately. We need saturated fats, but I'm not here to do another long lecture on that. The one thing I did actually want to talk about in regards to carnivore was, yes, Chris says independent critical thinking is important. It most certainly is. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, what I was just talking about there with the USDA, with these studies, the Ansel Keys study, the Seven Nations study, the Framingham study, this isn't like conspiracy theory. We have receipts on this. This was actually reported on by major networks. This happened back in 2015. Sorry, not what I was talking about earlier, but what happened in 2015 was we got memos and correspondence between like Coca-Cola and the professors that did these studies. They were going back and forth talking about like, here's what our study is looking like, we're gonna be able to conclude. and the heads of these companies were going, hey, good job. We like what you're concluding there. Keep doing that. Keep up the good work. If that's what's coming out in the study, give us more of that. All right. So we have this evidence that they were colluding with each other. They were conspiring with each other to subversively mislead the public about what was actually causing coronary heart disease. They put the blame on meat, they put the blame on saturated fat, they put the blame on cholesterol, which we actually know that cholesterol is necessary for our brain. People got away from cholesterol, they got away from saturated fat. That left our brain less defended, less protected by these very salutary nutrients that are necessary. And look what's happened since we've cut back on meat, since we've cut back on saturated fat. Coronary heart disease has continued to rise. So is it the meat or isn't it? Because we're eating less meat today, but coronary heart disease is on the rise. In fact, 50% of people who have heart attacks have lower than average cholesterol. Okay, so they're supposed to be the ones that don't get the heart attacks because the cholesterol is supposed to cause the heart attacks, and yet 50% of people who have heart attacks have good cholesterol. So it's not the cholesterol. And anybody who thinks that, they're just not looking at the evidence. They're not looking at what's really going on. They've got these blinders on, and it's no, I'm not going to look, not going to see that. Don't confuse me with the facts. So where was I though? So we know that also as meat declines, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's rises. It's crazy, right? So coronary heart disease on the rise, dementia on the rise, right? Because we don't have the cholesterol for our brains. We don't have the saturated fats for helping to give us energy, and that's brain food. And then they want us to believe that glucose is the way that we're supposed to fuel our brains. Not the case. But so you've got coronary heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of these things out of control, but it's the meat that's bad. But why are these things getting worse if meat's the cause? Because we're eating less meat today than ever before. So I digress. People can do whatever they want. I'm gonna look at it like this. If eating less meat has led to these things, maybe we should eat more meat. And now I don't think anybody needs to do what we're doing, but I think everybody should possibly consider including more meat in their diet than what they might now. There's just a lot of things in meat that you can't get from any other source of nutrition. There's a lot of vitamins, and anyway, I digress. I wanted to talk about the struggle of carnivore. My personal struggle so far on carnivore is eating enough. It is really, really difficult to eat enough, and I think the problem might be that I'm not eating enough fat. So what I've been learning is on carnivore, you can definitely undereat, and you can definitely not eat enough fat. So I'm going to try to start eating more fat, and the way that we're going to do that, I'm going to do that is just start chowing down on some butter. Now, for people who want to lose weight on carnivore, from what I've heard, I certainly have not needed to lose weight, but I have. So I need to do the opposite. But for people who want to lose weight, they suggest eating less fat, because then your body's going to make use of its own fat stores. So I definitely need to eat more fat to help me put on some weight. The thing about fat is they suggest that you start out eating 50% fat, 50% protein. And I believe that is, that's by weight.
By your weight?
No, that's by the weight of, so if you eat 2 pounds of food, 50% of it's supposed to be fat, 50% is supposed to be
meat or protein.
Protein, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And as much of it right off the bone as you can, because then you're getting more minerals, that's more mineralized nearer the bone. And the fat's going to store a lot of good vitamins in there.
What fats would you when you say fat? What do you mean by fat?
So the way I'm going to try to get more fat is by eating more tallow, more lard, and more butter, but not by itself necessarily. The butter, sure, I can eat butter off the stick, but tallow and lard, just including that in what we're cooking. So if I've got some fatty-ish meat, I'm going to throw some lard in there. If I've got some really fat meat, really fatty meat like a ribeye, I'm probably not going to add anything to it. I could. I suppose I could just put some butter on top. And the problem is if you eat too much fat, it makes everything really loose, and you can have explosive bath trips to the bathroom. Um, so you don't want that. But I've not had that problem since I've become fat adapted, and so I think the lesson learned in the last couple of weeks as I've been watching my weight decline is I'm definitely not eating enough, period, but I'm also not eating enough fat. I need to include more fat in my diet because that's how you keep up your fat stores. So fat can be turned into fat if you have a surplus of it. But it's also primarily used for building blocks and energy in our body. So I think my body's basically just been using it for energy as well as
How has your energy been?
building blocks. Oh, my energy has been.
And your brain fog?
My brain fog has not come back with a vengeance. Like, yeah. So brain fog diminished pretty quickly, and it's not come back. What has happened is my energy did kind of go down a little bit, and I'm thinking that's probably just because I'm not eating enough. It's really easy to undereat on carnivore. You get satiated really quickly. You get feeling full really quickly, but it's misleading because you're not actually full. So that's where I need to improve. Otherwise, everything's great. The only thing that I am a little frustrated with is just not getting is lower energy and lower weight. I think I've lost about 10 pounds since starting carnivore 3 months ago, and I didn't need to lose any.
You didn't need to lose any.
I mean, maybe I needed to lose some body fat, but I didn't. I wanted to see an increase in weight, if anything, not an overall decrease in weight. So I was fine with losing water weight. I was fine with losing body fat, but my muscle hasn't replaced that. And this is one of the things that I'm really frustrated with, this arm injury, because I can't exercise half my body practically. So I'd be out there working hard and eating a lot if I could to replace and grow new muscle, which is especially important, being 40 now. I need to start thinking about muscle, and I'm probably going to need to be thinking about exercise and all that. But so I know that was something that was brought up to talk about, was the fat on carnivore. So if that answered questions or helped clarify everything, then great. If not, we'll need a question or a follow-up, and then we can address that. But until we see that, we can go ahead and start talking about plans for our poultry. Plans specifically?
That was just the question. What are our plans for the poultry this year? So that could be our egg layers, selling of hens, our meat birds, probably just everything concerning our poultry.
Yeah, so we have egg layer chicks. We have ISA brown chicks.
How old do they now?
Oh, they gotta be what?
Couple of weeks? 3 weeks? I'm thinking.
Know.
Because we got them.
Let's see here.
Something happened around the time. Oh, we were about to babysit some dogs. That's when they showed up. So it's been just over 2 weeks.
Okay, yep. So there we go. Faster than I could find it. 2 weeks, and that means they've got about 20 weeks left before they start laying eggs. So our egg layers. Our plans with those are to raise some for us to replace our existing egg layers, or just to help kind of fill in the gaps as they start to age. They're going to be laying less, so we'll have some more egg layers to flesh out our flock, and then the rest will sell. And this is something we've done for the last 2 years. Is we always get more egg layers than we need, and then we raise them all and we sell the egg layers, and at the very least, at worst, we break even and we pay for our feed to raise the egg layers that we're going to keep. So it's basically raising them for free. So that's at worst. At best, we actually make a profit. So I think, probably the last several batches that we did last year, just last year, I'd say, I don't know, $2,000 is probably not a stretch.
And
Just
that's how
off the
much it
top of
costs
my
to get
head.
into it. With how many birds you got?
So then we sold more than that.
Yeah.
So we probably did $3,000-$4,000 in egg layer sales. I mean, we sold a couple hundred.
We got a couple hundred chicks,
We got more than that.
we got more than that. I would say we got 500 in total chicks throughout all of last year, starting in December,
Sure.
working all the way up to
It was
our
at
last batch
least
came
400.
in May. Didn't our last batch come in May or something? And then
Yep.
we're still we just recently, within the last couple of weeks, sold another 30, 50?
It was 50.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
We just sold another 50 from last year.
and we still have about 50 left, right?
Yep.
So we're ending with 50, but we had a total of 500 chicks that we started out for
At
last
least
year.
400.
So yeah.
But 500 wouldn't be a stretch. So then we sold 350 to 450. Some of those we sold for $25 a piece. If people were buying just a couple, yeah, we sold them for $25 a piece. Now, if they were really young, we did sell some as chicks, and we sold some as juvenile birds. Those we sold for a few bucks, right? So they cost us a couple of bucks. We sold them for a few bucks, but it wasn't that much. It wasn't that. We didn't have that much cost into them at that point, so we made a profit there. But overall, most of them we sold as adults, as ready to go, ready to lay eggs, and I've had repeat customers back from that. We've had people call us up and say, "Hey, you're raising more chickens this year." And so what they do, I guess, is they get a new batch of chickens every year, and the old batch goes to freezer camp. So we'll just keep turning over birds and keep raising birds to pay for us to raise birds, as well as we've already got the setup. We've got room for hundreds of birds. Might as well. I mean, we're using a barn as our chicken coop. How crazy is that? We have a massive chicken coop. We might as well fill it with birds and sell what we don't actually need to keep. So it's going very well on the egg laying front, and that is just for anybody doing this. I would highly recommend, if you're going to order 10, 15 chicks, order twice as many. See if the local market will support if you can put the supply out there, see if there's the demand for it. You're not going to break the bank raising twice as many chicks as you did, and I almost guarantee you, as long as you're not asking outlandish prices like $35, $40 a bird. Okay, if you're something reasonable, like, hey, if you want 2 birds, $40, so you're getting $20 a bird. I guarantee it didn't cost you, even if you're buying feed from the local farm supply store. It didn't cost you $20 to raise each of those birds. Now with your time and everything, if you're just getting into this, sure. But you're gonna have that initial investment of feeders and waters and lights and all of this, right? So help pay for some of that, raise some extra birds, sell them. You should be able to break even. It's not just, we didn't just break even on our feed, we broke even on feed, the waters, the feeders, the lights, and
The nesting boxes.
everything. Like selling some extra birds paid for us to have these birds. And so it is a really great idea that I came across. I didn't come up with this idea. I wish I'd come up with this idea, but it's an idea as old as time, right? You want a cow, but you've got enough land to raise 2 cows, so you raise 2 cows. You don't need that extra cow, you sell it to somebody else. And now selling that extra cow paid for you to buy the 2 cows originally and all of your inputs and everything, and now you get free beef. Really great idea. Definitely, that's something that we're starting to do more and more. And we're not quite ready to start doing that with larger animals, but well, with pretty much everything else, we're hatching our own quail. We have our own breeder pigs. We have our own breeder beef cows now. We have our own milk cow. So I'm probably not going to be buying larger animals, larger framed animals like that anytime soon. But
Yeah.
until we get more land, we've
Yeah.
about maxed out what we can put on the land here. But as far as continuing with the poultry plans, we need to
We need to start reaching out to our previous customers.
Yep,
Orders
our
for
egg
meat birds this year.
customers, or egg layer customers. We need to start reaching out to them. We need to start reaching out to our meat bird customers. And so we'll also be probably raising several hundred meat birds this year. My goal is if I could pre-sell 1,000 birds, I'd like to do 1,000 birds. But that's gonna have to be like, we're gonna have to be
That's a tight
have
schedule.
all of our T's crossed, all of our I's dotted. Like it's gonna be tight because we've only got freezer space for probably 200-300 birds, and that's not even counting the beef that we have. So once we process birds, no, we don't even have space for 300 birds. It's maybe 200 birds. We process the beef, and we're gonna fill up half of our freezers. So the rest of our freezer space is maybe going to be able to hold 100 chickens.
Well, and depending on if we're going to have people help us butcher, there's only so much we can do. I know that we are capable of butchering 100 chickens, just us, in a day. I
Yep.
know we can do that, but we would have to have like a very tight schedule of raising them.
Yep. We're going to have to.
In the schedule that we have during the summer, or
Yep.
like our only growing time to have them.
It's going to be
It's very tight.
butcher. So it's going to be get the chicks, they go in the brooder.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they get out of the brooder,
They go in the tractor.
we figure out, yep, they go in the tractor, and then we figure out how long are they going to be in the tractor? 4 weeks? Okay, we can put meat birds in here at the point where they start in the tractor. So we put the meat birds in the brooder. Once this batch gets big enough to butcher, then we're going to have to switch. They get butchered, and that same day, the chicks then go in the tractor.
The next batch.
The next batch goes in the tractor, and we're just going to have to keep flip-flopping like that to be able to do 1,000 birds.
Yeah, because we
Then
can only do
also,
100 at a time.
We're going to have to freeze those 100 birds,
Yep.
and as soon as they're frozen, start delivering them.
Yep.
Get them out of our freezers.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we need to butcher a lamb, you know, let's say we have a lamb that's not looking so good, and we want to be able to make use of that meat, we're not going to have any space to freeze it. So we need to be, yeah, we're going to have to really be on top of things if we're going to try to do 1,000 birds. But I think that we can do it. So that's kind of my personal challenge. We're looking at how can we make more money on our farm with the land that we have, that we're paying for anyway, right? Versus me having to spend more time off farm doing other forms of work. So if I can minimize the time I have to be off farm working and I could work more on the farm and it's profitable and we're making money, great. But it takes a little bit. It takes a clear, sharp mind, which thankfully I have again. Chris says, I'll be trying rabbits, laying hens, and maybe some meat chickens this year. First year trying any livestock production. Awesome, Chris.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Just be careful. It gets a little addicting.
Chickens are the gateway drug into homesteading. Especially like if you live in town, that's like one of the animals that you should be able to have, even in an HOA. Like you have to be careful with HOAs, but yeah, you can, like they say, chickens are the gateway drug into homesteading. So just be careful. There's a reason why it's called chicken math. So
yeah, you have to let us know how you like the rabbits. We did try rabbits.
Yeah. Our rabbits were not producing like rabbits.
1 year, but I don't know if it was us or if it was them. We may have just gotten a bad batch of rabbits, but they didn't quite reproduce.
They weren't doing their job.
Yep.
So, and with being livestock, if you don't have a job, you're not here. So.
Oh, nice. So you can do that in town. That's really cool.
They changed the ordinance, so yeah, that's good.
Excuse me.
Do they allow roosters too, or do you have to not have any roosters? Because if you can have a rooster, then that'd be even better, because then you might get a broody hen then who could hatch some more chicks out for you, so that way you can add to your flock if you can. So I do know that there is a thing. It's like I don't know what it's called, but it's basically like a collar that you can put on a rooster in town, so it stops them from growing. But I've heard that that's been the cause of many roosters' deaths too. So, if you can have a rooster, great. If you can't without him making noise, then I would say stay away from it, because those collars, it's not ending well with roosters. So, you're not planning on roosters, but they're not banned. Okay, well, that's good. Then you have the option there of adding to the flock naturally, if that is what you choose to do.
Not planning on adding roosters.
But it's not banned. So.
Yep.
And then Julie wants a walk-in freezer and refrigerator. Wouldn't we all? We do have the walk-in refrigerator.
Every homesteader.
Well, sort of a walk-in. It's a very large.
It's a roll-in cooler,
So.
which can almost freeze.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine is getting a walk-in cooler / freezer. It can switch back and forth. I'm a little jealous. I must admit.
Nice. How big is it going to be?
It's massive.
Massive?
Yeah.
Where are they going to put it?
In their basement.
How are they going to get it in the... How are they going to get it in the
comes apart in sections.
Oh, okay, because I'm sitting here thinking,
but
if it was like a bunker, how on earth you'd have to build on top of it to have it be in the basement?
I'm pretty sure he said he's going to put it in his basement of the house that he's building right now. So. Yeah,
so he could get in there before he builds, and then it's stuck in there. So if he moves, he's not taking it with him.
They all break apart in sections.
Okay.
That's how they're all manufactured in sections. It's like modular.
But it's something you'd be able, like 6 men could pick up and carry up the stairs.
Well, probably not 6 men. Like 2, you could carry it apart in sections. Like 2 guys. The thing is, you can find these. You just have to be willing to drive to them, disassemble them, load them up, and get them out of there. And that's about a day's job for 2 men.
Yeah. Because, well, you need more for our cooler. I mean, you've done it. You and just a buddy. You've done it, but you guys
cooler,
need help.
using a little ingenuity, we've been able to move it with 2 guys, but it's a 3-4 man lift.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, when I went and picked it up, this beast of a butcher, he and I were able to lift it.
Okay.
We were able to move it around, but that was a day where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm glad I didn't mess up my back. That could have been bad.
Yeah. So Julia says, my dear processor gave me a tour of his facility. I bet that was awesome. Because he's a taxidermy, isn't he? So he's dealing with carcasses all the time. He would need to have this stuff. So I bet
Coolbot. Yeah.
he had a lot of cool things.
I would just need a building insulated,
Yeah.
and I could do a.
You could build
Coolbot.
it. Yeah.
I like the idea of a walk-in freezer, especially if it's already outdoors, if it's already
Mm-hmm.
you know, built to be outdoors.
Yeah.
Some of these they really should be indoors, but then there's the ones that they're just sitting outside on a big cement slab. That would be fine.
Yeah.
Be a little expensive in the summer maybe, but so those you can find for free, and that's the difference. Coolbot and building your own cooler still costs money,
Yeah.
but it is something you can do on your time, on your terms, versus somebody putting up, hey, I've got a free freezer, all you got to do is come and take it down this walk-in freezer, and you're going, yeah, how am I going to get there in time to beat everybody else to it?
Yeah.
Because yeah, anyway, good ideas though. You know, I think the Coolbot will probably be the way that we go. Having looked into it, but I might have a friend build a Coolbot for me.
Oh, okay.
It's very simple, at least for a computer engineer like him.
Okay. Okay.
Basically, a little electric ingenuity, and he can turn a air conditioner into a never to basically run and never stop.
Okay.
Where did my list go?
Um.
Okay, poultry plans. So our poultry plans include what we already talked about at the beginning of the live stream, which is hatching quail eggs. Although I guess maybe they're not poultry, but we're going to include them with poultry anyway. Hatching quail eggs, hatching turkey eggs. Probably have enough turkey poults to sell, and then
And have for us.
Again this year. We'll see. Excuse me. And then we're going to be buying from the hatchery, because I don't try to hatch our own chickens out anymore. The hatcheries do it great. Why try to do something that they do better? Buying our chicks from the hatcheries for egg layers and for meat birds. We did try 1 year breeding our own meat birds. And then probably, I don't know, another 400 or 500 egg layers this year. And I've got a really big goal of 1,000 meat birds, which probably isn't going to happen.
I
But
don't
you
know
can
how
dream.
we'd do it. Yeah, I mean,
You can dream.
it's a nice thought. You'd have to build more chicken tractors if you wanted to do it.
Wise man once said, you should make a goal so big you don't think that you can reach it. Otherwise, why waste your time making goals? You're just going to drift through life anyway. So I've made a goal that I don't think I can reach, but we're going to try. And if we get halfway there, awesome. We'll see what happens.
So now Julia says she's made a new friend with a processor. Okay. And he had 176 deer hanging, waiting for you to get them. Nice. Nice source of meat then. And then she's wondering what a Coolbot is.
76. Yeah, probably the best thing is to look it up. It's a pretty cool little thing. And basically, you hook it up to your air conditioner. So you have a window air conditioner mounted in your insulated building that you want to use as a freezer. Okay, so it's probably not going to be huge. You're not going to be able to do this with your house. I mean, you could hook the Coolbot up to the window air conditioner in your house, and what the Coolbot does though is it forces the air conditioner to not turn off. The air conditioner will only go down to like it'll eventually turn off at, I don't know, 60 degrees or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you're never going to get the temperature down cool enough to even be a
Refrigerator.
fridge. So the Coolbot helps you turn a small shed that insulate into a cooler and potentially a freezer, but don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I've looked into it. Maybe you could get it down to freezing temps, but it's something that a lot of homesteaders have bought in conjunction with an air conditioner that they put in a building, and voila, you've got a walk-in cooler.
I've seen people use trailers, convert little U-Haul trailers.
Oh yeah.
They do that. They, put in a air conditioner spot in it and then just insulate it so that it
Now that's an
turns
idea.
into a cooler / freezer that's mobile.
Yep, that's
So-
an idea. If I could find a cheap trailer,
Yeah.
a walk-in enclosed trailer might be an idea. I'll have to think about it.
So Julie is wondering what is better, hatch your own or go with the hatchery?
I think
When
she's
it's chicken?
saying that, yeah.
Yeah, she was wondering what is better. So when it comes to like egg layers and meat birds, I would say hatchery. Unless you got a reliable like it's not heirloom. What is it? Heritage. If you got a good heritage breed that are consistent with their like they don't have so much in them where you could get something else.
Yeah.
You could do that for hatching. Quail, obviously, because we got good bloodlines and a mixture of bloodlines, we continue to hatch our own quail. But when it comes to egg layers and meat birds, we go with the hatchery. Just because, like, we've tried meat birds hatching ourselves, and the genetics got to the point where we were getting very small meat birds. And the same with our egg layers. We were getting like half breeds, and so they just didn't lay as well.
So here we've got two different eggs. Want to guess which one comes from the hatchery and which one comes from a
hatchery
heritage?
A hatchery hen and a heritage breed that we hatched.
So one of these eggs comes from a hen that we. Oh, that's right. I need to clarify. I was like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? What are you talking about, woman?
Clarify where we're getting these birds from.
Okay.
We don't get eggs
Let me
from
just tell you,
hatcheries.
this is an egg from one of the hens that we got as a chick from a hatchery. She is an egg layer, okay? This is an egg, okay? There's a little bit of a size difference there. This one's way bigger. It's like almost twice the size of this one. But this comes from a hen that we got as no, we actually hatched this out.
it.
Yeah, we hatched this out. Okay, so
That's Dominique.
it's a heritage breed. It's Dominique, which we really like the Dominiques because they're more self-sufficient. They do a great job foraging, so less cost in feed, right? Less feed. They're a hardy bird.
Yeah, cool hardy.
They're the speckled black and white ones, or
With the
striped
rose comb.
black and white. Dominiques and Barred Rocks. Okay, they're basically the same bird, except one has a single comb going down the middle of its head. The other one has this kind of crumpled looking thing called a rose comb. We have both actually, but we're trying to weed out the Barred Rocks in favor of the Dominics. Don't ask me why. It's just our preference. We like the rose combs, and it doesn't really matter. They're both basically the same bird. It's just one has one genetic difference in the comb, the other has another genetic difference in the comb. Otherwise, they're literally the same bird. But rose combs are so cool. So
Yeah.
you take this and compare it to this, and this is the kind of egg you get from birds that are going to be very difficult for you to try to incubate yourself. These are going to be more reliable as far as self-sufficiency, but they're not as big. And people aren't going to buy these or the birds who lay them from you for the same price that they're going to buy these. So if I were to sell these Dominiques, they're a dime a dozen. And they're a farmyard bird. These guys laying big, extra large eggs like this versus these guys laying little medium eggs. We're going to sell a lot more of these, and we're going to sell a lot more of the chickens that lay these. And so if for me, at the end of the day, after having done this, we're starting our 4th season. It's all about, is it efficient and is it profitable? If you're just doing it for fun, I'm not going to knock that. Do what you want to do. But if you are at all concerned about being able to provide yourself with any sort of income doing this while we have the hatcheries. So maybe if you're looking at it from a self-sufficient point of view or being able to survive in a post-apocalyptic world, you're going to go with these. But meanwhile, while we have the hatcheries, why not make yourself some money? And we've got some Dominiques, so we're going to survive the zombie apocalypse, and we're going to make some money in the meantime. So until the zombies come and eat all our customers, we're going to be selling them these big, fat, extra large egg-laying birds and the eggs. And nobody's going to buy these from us when we've got these. And nobody's going to buy these from us for $4+ a dozen when we can sell them these. So that's my advice on layers and hatching your own. Now here's what I would always hatch. I will always hatch quail because
Yes.
I'm getting bigger birds by selectively breeding them, and we
haven't had problems with the quail.
we haven't had problems with the quail. Way beyond paying for this big incubator we got. We got a big cabinet incubator. I think we can incubate something like
1,000.
It's a lot of quail.
I think if we had the space to lock them down.
It's over 600 quail.
Yeah.
It's over 600 quail we
yeah.
can incubate. Quail eggs we can incubate at a time, okay? So you take those 600 quail, you've already more than paid for your incubator, because these quail chicks, they cost over $4 a piece. They're over $5 a piece now. That's really expensive for a little itty bitty bird.
Yeah, that can die at a moment's notice.
Yeah, drop of a hat. So once they're about a week or two old, they're perfect. They're just like the turkeys. You look at them wrong when they're 2 weeks or younger, and they might drop dead.
Oh, they still kind of are like that as adults, just less. But still.
I would say that's debatable.
They're also incredibly vicious. They like killing each other.
That is the one thing that's difficult about quail, is they'll kill each other.
They're mean to each other.
So I did talk to one lady that I sold some quail to that we had hatched last year, and she said that she bought like 24 quail, and they all died except one who was covered in blood. So
yeah,
in those cases, like, you've got to make sure you get quail from a good source. You can't just go anywhere and buy quail these days, because there are bad genetics that make them more aggressive, and then you'll have one rooster that'll just go through the entire covey and kill everything because he's a psycho. I've seen it happen with ours. We actually had to cull. Didn't have to, but we didn't have the time or the bandwidth or everything to be able to deal with this problem. We had aggressive quail, and so we basically ended up just culling the entire genetic line. We just wiped the genetic pool out of those aggressive quail, because I wasn't going to sell those quail to anybody, and they were causing us all kinds of hassle and trouble. They were beating each other up, and we're trying to
They were also
help injured quail.
They were producing very lightweight birds too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't worth it.
We got rid of that genetic pool, and we started over with the best genetics that we could find from 2 farms, one here in Iowa and another one in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Very highly rated, and we have had no problems with these birds. Like, the aggression just isn't there like it was with the others. Now, once in a while, a rooster will, beat up on another rooster or hen. It's always going to happen. But you didn't have bloodbaths. It was, So you want to make sure that you get some good quail and start with some good genetics, because otherwise they will basically genocide themselves on you.
I don't think you can say that word on YouTube either.
Oh my goodness. What can you... Good grief.
Well, I think the kids are done waiting for us to do this, and there are things that we need to do. So, Shall we wrap this up?
Yep, let's wrap it up before they cut our live stream. Good grief. You can't say anything anymore. This is not why we moved out to the country, to Yeah, thanks for joining us, Chris. Thank you, Julia. Thank you to everybody who has watched or will join in. Everybody take care. Stay safe. Hug somebody. God bless. Everything is going to be okay. Peace.